Hi, it's Kat with Prenatal Support, and today I'm going to walk you through a prenatal movement class that's appropriate for anyone during their entire pregnancy, whether you're just at the beginning or whether you're about to give birth. Today for class, you need something to sit on at the beginning, a chair, a birth ball, a sofa, or the floor. It's also great. You need a set of weights. I'm using 8-pound weights, but anything from 5 to 10 is great. And then lastly, if you have some sort of dowel of some sort, that's great. This is a broom without the broom, but we're just using it as a little like alignment feedback tool. So if you don't have it, that's okay. If you do, awesome. We are going to start by breathing. So I want you to sit down on whatever you're going to sit on and try to sit yourself up on your sit bones. So you can sort of like, oh, my chair is squeaky. You can sort of rock yourself from side to side and feel your sit bones heavy down into the chair. And then you're going to take your hands and put them on your rib cage. So 4 fingers are going to go in the front, thumbs are going to sneak around to the back. You can rest your palm or the heel of your palm just down against your ribs. And then with your hands, give just a tiny little bit of pressure into your rib cage and feel how they sort of bounce back against that pressure. We are going to move the ribs quite a bit with our breath, but it's just sort of nice to note like how the ribs do yield to some pressure. So provide a little bit of pressure to your rib cage, and then you're going to inhale into that pressure. So as you inhale, you're going to breathe side to side into the heels of your hands, expanding your ribs nice and wide, taking a full deep breath in through the nose specifically, and then exhale and feel how the rib cage just falls. Let's do that 2 more times. Then we're going to do the same thing from front to back. So take a hand and put it on your chest. Your other hand can just go back on your rib cage somewhere. If this mobility is not available to you, you can just lower your hand maybe down to your low back and just try and feel some breath and some movement down here. So again, you're going to take some nice deep breaths. Expanding front and back, and then exhale. So what we're doing here is we are mobilizing your diaphragm. We're getting your diaphragm moving. Your diaphragm descends as you inhale and lifts back up as you exhale. As it descends, it expands in all directions, 360 degrees, as the shape of the rib cage expands. And then as you exhale, the diaphragm lifts up, and the outer edge of the diaphragm, which attaches to the inside of your ribs, narrows a little bit. So we're just getting that movement going. We'll do one more. Nice, good. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little bit of belly breathing. So take your hands and place them on your belly. And what belly breathing is it's just the response in the abdomen to the diaphragm descending. So as the diaphragm descends down, there's an increase in pressure in the abdomen. The abdominal wall responds to that increase in pressure by yielding and expanding. So you've got your hands on your belly. Again, you can close your eyes if that feels good. And then think about breathing into your belly. So as you inhale, the belly expands because the diaphragm has just descended. And then as you exhale, you're not sucking your belly in, you're just deflating. We'll do that 2 more times. And you can layer on that expansion of the rib cage in all directions too, if you can sort of wrap your brain around all of that. Good. Okay, so last little bit. We are going to now coordinate the activation of our innermost layer of our abdominals. It's called the transverse abdominis. We're going to coordinate that with the breath. So you can put your hands back on your belly. You're going to inhale and let your belly expand. And then as you exhale, you're going to hug your baby in. You can think that your 2 front hip points narrow in towards each other and your belly button lifts. So we're wrapping the transverse around the baby. And then as you inhale, you're going to let your abs gently relax and yield to that pressure. I'll show you from the side. And then as you exhale, you're going to engage Two front hip points narrow, navel lifts, your belly probably gets quite a bit smaller. Let's do 2 more. So as we move through class, I'm gonna cue and exhale. And usually when I cue and exhale, I mean for you to do this coordination, wrapping the 2 front hip points in towards each other, hugging your baby close. One more time here. Awesome. Good. Okay, we're gonna move on here. You can put your chair off to the side. You're gonna come to standing. And just stand towards one side of your space. So you've got some space in front of you. We're gonna move down onto the floor. Depending on the size of your belly, you might need some pretty wide legs here, but we're gonna do a little roll down. So before you start to roll down, just stand yourself up tall. And I want you to note that your head is stacked over your rib cage, which is stacked over your pelvis, which is stacked over your heels. So lots of times in pregnancy, the pelvis starts to shift forward, and that puts a lot of compression on the low back, turns the glutes off, turns the abs off, or makes it harder for those muscles to engage. So ideally when you're standing, you've got everything stacked over your heels. So go ahead and feel that for a moment. And then you're gonna start by just nodding your chin. And you're gonna slowly drip down. You can soften your knees whenever you need to, but ideally you're just moving incrementally, letting one vertebra at a time sink down towards the ground until you get all the way into your forward fold. Maybe that means the hands touch the ground. Maybe that means your hands are on your legs somewhere. And then just take a few breaths here, letting gravity pull your head down to the ground, tractioning your spine. I always get a little crack in my upper back. That feels good for me. Maybe you bend your knees. Again, this should feel comfortable. All of this should feel comfortable. So modify as you need. And then we're gonna roll back up. So gently bend your knees. You can think about pointing your sits bones down towards the ground. Keep your head heavy, and you're gonna slowly rebuild. Again, as you stand up, you find that vertical. Let's do it again, nodding through the chin. Softening the knees, rounding your body forward. This time, once those hands touch the ground, you're gonna begin to crawl them or walk them forward. You probably will need to narrow your feet in towards each other a little bit, and you're just gonna do a little prancing through your heels. So 1 foot at a time, sinking your heel down. If it feels good, you could potentially lift a leg up and sort of mobilize however feels good in your body. For some people, that's gonna feel horrible. So just do what feels good for you. Then you're gonna walk those feet wide again. Your hands walk back towards your feet. Soften your knees to point your sits bones towards the ground. Drop the head and slowly round up. At the top, lift your shoulders up by your ears. Flip your palms to face forward and then open your shoulders really wide as they drop next to your rib cage. Last time, nod the chin. Bend the knees. Round forward. Once those hands hit the ground, you will walk them forward, and then you're gonna bring your knees to the ground, so we're in all fours. And then go ahead and start to do a little bit of cat-cow, arching and rounding as much as feels good. As you're doing this, especially as you move forward into cow, if there's any sort of burning or uncomfortable sensation across the front of the belly, just decrease your range of motion. You can think about really localizing your movement to maybe even the rib cage. And then as you go up into cat, you can think about really trying to round your low back. And then you're gonna settle yourself in center. So we're working for a neutral spine here. That means you have a little curve of your low back. Your rib cage is ever so slightly doming up towards the sky. And once you've found this positioning of your spine, you're gonna maintain it through the next few exercises. So the shape of your spine doesn't change, and we're gonna go back to that belly breath. So as you inhale, you can let your belly drop down. And then as you exhale, you're gonna hug that baby close. Do not let your low back curve or arch. whatever. Don't change the low back spine. So you inhale, let your belly relax, and then exhale. 2 front hip points narrow, belly button draws in. One more time. Or specifically belly button draws up. Good. Then open your knees nice and wide, sit your bum back towards your heels, slide your hands forward, and just take a few deep breaths. Feeling here that as you inhale, you're breathing into your low back. Then you're gonna bring yourself forward into your all fours shape again. My shins are parallel. Try to have the crease of your elbow rotating forward and then draw your shoulders nice and wide away from each other. So you're gonna maintain as much of that abdominal activation is required to accomplish the tasks as we move forward. So your pelvis is not gonna shift over to your left. I want you to really put your weight down into your right hand. Almost feel like you're loading your weight into that right hand extra. And you're gonna reach your right leg long behind you, keeping your 2 hips nice and square. Then you're gonna lower that leg down, seamless transition to the other side. So even before you extend that left leg long, push down through that left hand, draw that shoulder nice and wide, feel your left abs engage so that it's pretty easy to extend your left leg long. You don't have to do a bunch of shifting from side to side. Keep making this transition seamless, seamless. I'm using my exhale to coordinate my abs before my leg even leaves the ground. And it's really tempting to open the hip of the leg that you're extending back or overarch the back as the leg extends. I have no cares about how high your leg gets. I care that your spine stays stable. And then once you're feeling pretty good here, you can start to add your opposite arm. So right leg, left arm, reach away from each other. Everything lowers back down. Feeling those abs coordinate as you switch. The arm that reaches overhead, make sure that your shoulder's not climbing up by your ear. I like to have my palm facing in towards my midline. And then I like to think that my inner thigh is almost what's leading the way up towards the sky as the leg reaches back, because that helps me maintain parallel in my leg, which then helps me maintain square hips. Let's do one more time per side. Can you breathe into your back ribs? Can you breathe into your side ribs? Good. Maybe come off of your hands for a second. It might feel good to do a little counter stretch, holding onto your fingers and pulling them back towards your chest. Switching sides. Okay, we're gonna do 2 more things down on the floor here. Hands come back into all fours. This time you're gonna tuck your toes. Inhale, let your belly relax just like we've done before. You're gonna exhale and find that coordination through your transverse. Then maintain that connection. Push through your hands and toes. Hover your knees an inch off of the mat. And then you're gonna slowly rest the knees back down. We're gonna do that 4 more times. So inhale, the belly expands. As you exhale and engage the abs, do not tuck your pelvis. Feel like you've got a bunch of balloons attached to your tailbone and your bum just lifts up as you push down through your hands and toes. Lower those knees back down. No thuds with your knees. 3 more. Exhale. I really like to think like I'm pushing the ground away, pushing the ground down as opposed to lifting my knees up. And ideally you can control what's going on in your abs throughout the entirety of the exercise. This next time, go ahead and hover. And then from the hover, we're gonna move up and back into downward dog. So you can think about sinking the heels towards the ground, push through your hands, flip your sit bones up, and then come forward back into your hover. So turn those upper arm bones out, shoulders are nice and wide, knees come to the hover. If you're up for it, you go right back into it so you don't have to rest your knees down. Nice hammy stretch, flip those sit bones up, and then come forward. We're just gonna do 2 more. Good. And then again, you could prance through your heels for a second if that feels good. Eventually you'll walk either your hands towards your feet or your feet towards your hands. Make space for your belly and slowly rebuild. Nice. Okay, so we're gonna move on, get our bodies moving a little bit faster, get our blood pumping a little bit more. And we're gonna do 2 exercises here as a sort of warm up. So one of them involves your broomstick, so go ahead and grab that. You're gonna put the broomstick behind your body. You want 3 points of contact with the broomstick. So your noggin, the back of your head, your rib cage, and then I nestle my little stick here right in between my cheeks so that it's touching my sacrum. I've got a hand up top and I use the back of my hand to keep the stick in between my cheeks. And the point here is to maintain those 3 points of contact. So we're just maintaining a nice neutral spine as we move through the movement. This is a good morning. Your feet are a little bit wider than your hips. You can bend your knees slightly, but with those 3 points of contact, you're gonna start to hinge at the hips, tipping your body forward only as far as you can go with those 3 points of contact. So if I start to round my low back, my booty comes off. If I start to overarch my spine, my rib cage comes off. So we're trying to find those 3 points of contact. And what happens at the bottom here is a nice big hamstring stretch. And then I'm actually using my hamstrings and my glutes to leverage myself back up to vertical. So that's your first exercise. I'm gonna talk you through both before we get started. Your second exercise is a little pop squat. I'll give you 2 variations. One, your feet start together. You jump your feet wide to tap the ground and then jump your feet back together. You can alternate which hand touches the floor. If that jump is a no-go for you, you're just gonna modify. Feet will start together. You're gonna step off to one side, touch the ground, bring your feet back together, off to the other side, bring your feet back together. So the structure of this is kind of like a Tabata. So we're gonna do 20 seconds of one exercise, we'll have a 10-second rest. 20 seconds of the next exercise, we'll have a 10-second rest, and we're gonna do that 4 times through. So go ahead and grab your broomstick, put it on your spine, find those 3 points of contact. Try and remember which hand is up top so that next time you can switch. And then you're just gonna start with your hip hinges in 3, 2, we've got 20 seconds here. So you hinge and stand back up. I like to feel that stretch in my hamstrings, and then I sort of use that sensation to figure out what I want to engage as I stand up. When you stand up, make sure that those hips don't come too far forward over your toes. You just come vertically right over your heels. That is 20 seconds. You can stand yourself up, put that down. We're going into your pop squat. This is when I'm gonna start getting out of breath. Nothing will be cute from here on out. Feet start together, off you go. You tap and come back together. Try and keep your mouth closed and breathe through your nose. That's gonna get your diaphragm moving a little bit more. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Good, give yourself this 10 seconds. Take a sip of water if you need. Grab that stick, try and switch hands. We go back into your hinge, 20 seconds, off you go. Hinge and stand up. Using this time to slow your heart rate down. During pregnancy, you should be able to pass the talk test. That means that you can comfortably have a conversation with your workout buddy. Last one. 10-second rest. Back into your version of this pop squat in 3, 2, go for it. And as I'm doing this, I'm keeping, like I could still have that stick on my spine. I'm maintaining neutral the whole time. You got 5 more seconds. 2 and 1. Good, we're halfway through this. Grab that stick. Pause me if you have to. Take care of yourself. Into your hinges, 20 seconds, off you go. You can widen your legs as much as you need to so that your belly doesn't get in the way too much. We'll be using this hip hinge movement later, which is why we're prepping it now. This is your last one. 10-second Pop squats in 3, 2, go for it. You just get to listen to me breathe. Sorry. 3, 2, 1. Nice, 10-second rest. Last round. Hip hinging in 3, 2, off you go. Five more seconds. 2, 1, 10-second rest. 3, 2, go for it. Three, 2, 1, nice, good. Take a sip of water. Okay, so now we're gonna move into our circuit. Today in our circuit, all of our exercises involve our weights. The first 3 exercises will build together to make the 4th exercise in our circuit. We're gonna do the whole thing 3 times. So go ahead and grab those weights. We're gonna start with a hammer curl. We're doing 12 to 15. I'm gonna do 12, but if you wanna do more, you can do that. Feet are in parallel. They're about sits bone width apart. And this is a great time to check in on that postural cue. So make sure that your belly isn't sneaking forward. You're stacking your hips over your heels. And then from here, it's just a clean hinge from the elbow. So upper arm bone stays steady. You bend that weight to your ribs, to your shoulder, and then extend down. 12 here. And as you do this moment where the weight is furthest from your body, that's when you perceive of the weight as being the heaviest. And so the abs ideally have to engage a little bit more in that moment. Oh shoot, I've already lost count. In that moment, because they're working a little bit hard to just sort of keep your spine steady as your arms move around. So yes, we're working our arms, but everything is sort of like a structural, postural, abdominal activation always. Okay, I have no idea where I am. I'm gonna say I have 2 more. Sorry. Cool, nice. Next exercise is a hip hinge, or you could also think of it as a deadlift. So the weights are gonna start right in front of my thighs here. Palms are facing back towards my thighs. And my weights are gonna go on an elevator ride. So imagine you still have that stick behind your body. You're going to hinge your hips back and your weights go on an elevator ride down. Maybe they get to about mid shin. It depends what range of motion you have in your spine. Feel that stretch on your hamstrings and then use your hamstrings to stand you up. We're going for 10 of these. Hinging, thinking about flaring your sit bones back. And then I exhale from the bottom. That helps me engage my abdominals, stabilize my trunk, and stand up with support. Okay, see, it's when I start talking, that's when I stop counting. I think I have 5 more. Have you been counting? And we're not going fast here. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. Nice, that was exercise number 2. If you need to take a sip of water, you can. I'm gonna show you exercise number 3. I'm basically gonna hit that same shape with my body. So my hips are hinged back, my shins are vertical. Then I'm gonna keep the upper arm bone right next to my body. It's like the opposite of a bicep curl. I'm gonna little tricep kickback to extend my weights back towards my hips. Again, aiming for about 10 or 12 of these. So you extend back, hold for a second, and bend. Extend back, hold for a second, and bend. As you're doing this, you wanna make sure that the rib cage doesn't start to splay forward. You also wanna make sure that your shoulder doesn't round forward as the arm extends. So you're keeping the shoulder set really stably. is that a word? On your rib cage. The relationship between your upper arm bone and your rib cage doesn't change. Literally all you're doing is extending at the elbow and bending. Maybe you have like 3 or 4 more. Okie dokies, then you're gonna stand yourself up. Okay, fourth and final exercise, inner circuit, combines all of these things. It's a really dynamic movement. You're gonna start with the weight up at your shoulders, like at the top of your hammer curl. Then the weights swing back into your tricep extension, tricep kickback, as you move into a hip hinge. So it's a pretty dynamic movement. My shoulder stabilizing muscles are doing a ton of work so that my shoulder doesn't flop all around as my arm swings. This first round, we're gonna do this for a full 60 seconds. So maybe take a sip of water, prepare your brain, maybe practice the movement. You can even practice without weights, that could be helpful, and then you can layer on the weights. And if at any point the weight feels too heavy, then ditch the weights, no problem. We're gonna get started in 10 seconds here. Those weights are at your shoulders. 3, 2, off you go. 60 seconds, back and up. And so I'm using my glutes. My hair just went in my mouth. There's also quite a bit of abdominal activation. I'm pretty much resisting against this momentum of the weight. You are halfway. You'll get a break after this. Lots of grip strength going on. I'm not really breathing in coordination with the movement. Man, it feels like my arms are gonna fall off. 5. You are done. Good. Give yourself a break. Give myself a break. Okay, that was round 1. We got 2 more to go. My arms are a little pumped here. You're gonna grab onto those weights, 12 to 15 of these bicep curls or hammer curls, whenever you're ready. Those arms extend right in front of you, thighs, hands are in front of the thighs. Hinge your hips back as your body tips forward and stand up. You've got 10 here. This would be a great exercise for a heavier weight. I love deadlifts with heavy weights. It really helps me feel what's going on in my hamstrings. Maybe this feels heavy for you and this feels like a wonderful challenge. If so, that's amazing. So in this exercise, you've got 5 more. In this exercise, I'm intentionally not letting my knees go forward of my ankles. And the reason that that's important to me in this moment is that I'm trying to use the muscles in the back of my legs. If I let my knees come forward, I'm just putting more work in the front of my leg. So we're using sort of like the alignment of our bones to get the muscles recruiting as we want them to. You're gonna go back down into that hinge, pull your elbows up next to your rib cage, 10 to 12 of these. Nice tricep kickback. Keeping your shoulders wide. I got 3 more. Good. Okay, so this time we're decreasing the time. We're gonna do 45 seconds of this dynamic swing exercise. If you need to put your weights down for a second, shake off your arms, take a sip of water, you can do whatever you need, pause me. We're gonna start in 5 seconds. 45 seconds, 3, 2, off you go. And if your range of motion is limited because your belly, that's totally fine. You could also try taking your legs a little wider. That probably just means that your hands need to go a little bit wider out to the side as well. You got 15 more seconds, almost there. I took a sneaky break. 5, 3, 2, 1. Give yourself a break. Maybe your arms get a little wiggle jiggle. Okay, we're going into round 3 here. Same 3 exercises, nothing about those first 3 exercises changes. In the last exercise, we're decreasing it down to 30 seconds. So you have done the majority of the hard work that we will do today. Go ahead and grab those weights. Stand yourself up nice and tall. 12 to 15 of these hammer curls. Be smart with your body. If 12 is the no-go for you, adjust. You've already done so much today. You don't have to push it if your body's not up for it. Once you are done with those, the arms are in front of your body. Fingers point in towards your thighs. Hinge your hips back. And then use the back of your legs to leverage you up. You have 10 here. So when your pelvis tips forward, this is your pelvis. When your pelvis tips forward, your hamstrings attached to your sit bones. And when the pelvis tips, the hamstrings stretch. And then in order to leverage your entire spine, whoop, whoop, back up to vertical, your hamstrings engage and they pull down on your sits bones, and that's what pulls you up to vertical. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll go too far in their range of motion and start to curve their low back. Now my hamstrings are actually pretty short. I haven't stretched them, and that means I'm going to use more of my low back muscles to curl me up rather than really loading the back of the leg, which is our goal here. Once you have done those 10, you're probably close. You're moving into your tricep extensions, so tricep kickbacks. So 10 to 12 is your goal. It honestly depends on how much weight you have in your hands. These 8s, I don't know, they feel pretty heavy for 10. For moi. Okay, so we're gonna go into our last round of this last exercise. We're doing it just for 30 seconds. We're starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, go for it. So one thing that I personally do is wrap my thumb with my fingers as opposed to around the other side of the weight. Just because sometimes when I hold my weight like that, it really bothers my thumbs. So if you notice that I'm doing this funky thing, that is why. You can choose how to do it for your body. This is your last 3, 2, 1, hubba hubba. You are done with all the hard work. Put those weights down. We're gonna do a little stretch for your pecs, and then we're gonna end with how I always end prenatal movement classes, with something called a labor movement practice. So to do the pec stretch, you're gonna find a wall, face towards the wall. Hand is gonna go up on a little diagonal, and then you're gonna rotate away from the hand. So you're getting a nice stretch through your shoulder. And just hang out here. You can internally rotate the arm, externally rotate. Slow your breath down. This is a great thing to do after you've just finished feeding your baby, because when you're feeding your baby, your attention is forward and the front of the chest just starts to shorten. And so anything you can do to open the front of your body is like a gift to your body. Go ahead and switch sides. So other hand finds a spot on the wall. And then play around with it. I'm probably tighter in different places than you are, just because we've used our bodies in different ways. So just find a version of this stretch that feels like it serves you. Good, and then you can come out of that. Okay, then you're gonna find yourself on the floor in a comfortable position. I talk about the whole reasoning behind this last little practice. Well, I talk about it in my prenatal movement classes, but I also have an entire online course about it called Movement for Labor, but I'll give you a brief little intro to the concepts now. So first, I just want you to find a comfortable place on the floor, ideally. And you're gonna close your eyes and see if you can return back to that diaphragmatic breath. So if you can, close your mouth and try and breathe through your nose. And then you're just gonna start to listen to the information that your body has to share with you. So your body is constantly sending your brain information. And then if your brain has a ton of other things to focus on, it's really hard to listen to what the body has to say. So in this moment, get rid of your to-do list, get rid of your email inbox, whatever it is, try to get it out of your brain so that you're letting your brain listen to your nervous system. And we're gonna do this with a little body scan. So starting at the top of your head, you don't have to change anything. Just notice like what's going on in my scalp. What's going on in my eyebrows, in my jaw, through the back of the neck. Listening to the tops of the shoulders. There's probably quite a bit of sensation in your shoulders. There's quite a bit of sensation in my shoulders and my arms after what we just did. So just note that, listen to it. Listen to what's going on in your forearms, in your palms, in the skin in between your fingers. And then take your attention back to your rib cage. Maybe listening to that ebb and flow as you breathe. Are there places in your rib cage that kind of feel stuck, like they aren't moving that much? And then maybe take your attention down through your low back, into your pelvis, through the glutes, maybe even down into the pelvic floor. Where is your pelvic floor? Is there tension that you're holding on to? Again, you don't have to change anything, you're just listening. And then take your attention to your belly. Maybe you're at a point in pregnancy where you're feeling your baby move. Maybe you're not there yet. But even if your baby's not moving, does your baby have something that they're telling you? And then move down through the front of the hips, taking your attention through the thighs. Maybe try and pay attention to the skin on the back of your knee pit, down the front of your shin, to all the little tips of your toes and the soles of your feet. So now you just have a lot more information about what's going on in your body in this moment. And so the next part of this is to just begin to move in response to that information. So this doesn't have to look like anything. No one's watching you. This could be really, really small. You could do stretches that maybe you learned in a class you took once and your body's sort of craving. Or this could be your own sort of intuitive dance. But the whole idea here is that during labor, your body has so much information, so much wisdom. And listening to that can be really hard, especially if you're in a setting where there are people coming in and out of your birth space, or if there are bright lights. And so it's really great to practice first just the listening. What does my body have to share with me? And then the ability to respond to that information with movement is a huge gift during labor, because your baby's only way to communicate with you is through pressure. And so if you're feeling pain on the right side of your pelvis, for example, maybe opening that knee alleviates some of that pain or that pressure. And that helps baby find a better position in the pelvis and helps your labor continue to progress. So even if you have an epidural, you could say like, I don't know, I just like have this, I really want to lay on my right side. If you have that inclination, follow it, because there's probably a reason that your body wants to lay on your right side. And so practicing the listening and practicing the responding with movement now, before you're in labor, will make it easier to access that sensitivity and that what I call response ability, like your ability to respond to your body's wants in labor. And then if you have something you've done on one side and you want to be symmetrical, you can go ahead and make yourself even. I want you to feel like this practice never ends. So as you turn off your computer and maybe open your phone or whatever, feel like you're still listening to what your body needs and still responding to what your body is asking for. That will make for a much happier body. I promise, I promise. Thanks so much for working hard with me today. If you want to attend live classes, check out my website. I'll have information down below about how to register. That's it. Have a great day.